How's it going, guys? So it's been a while since I've done this, so it feels kind of awkward. But I'm back with the graphic novel haul for May and June, and the books have stacked up these 2 months, so I'll try to get through them as quick as possible without wasting too much of your time. Starting with the larger trim books, as I usually do, I have Garage Man's Dalston Monsters. It's published by Nobro. And Dalston Monsters is about this young guy who has just gotten out of juvenile detention. I'm not sure how it works in England, but he's basically just gotten out of jail or something. And of course, all he wants to do is hang out with his mate. And as any typical guy, all he wants to do is hang out with the hot chick he just met. So that's basically what Dalston Monsters centers around. Of course, if that doesn't interest you, maybe knowing that the hot chick has a monster, and there's a powerful man who is after her, and he does some blood sport on the side. And then, of course, you have all the gangs, and all the gangs have monsters as well, and they're after the girl. So, yeah, that sums up what the book is all about. In the beginning was kind of it felt kind of odd, but it is drawn out very nicely. You got some great dialogue. I think it's the first time Man has done an actual graphic novel. Other than that, he basically does graffiti art or some kind of other art. You want something pretty indie, I would check that out. Moving on to some bande dessinée. I have two here, both by Cinebooks. This is Beartooth, scripted by Jan, and art by Elaine Hendricks. And Beartooth is about tells a story about three kids growing up in German occupied Poland. So it's during World War II or slightly before. The story goes back and forth from when Max, this first book is titled, is a kid there with his two friends. They all want to be pilots, but of course, in occupied Poland, the only way you could be a pilot or fly would be joining the Nazi party. And of course, I think Max is Jewish, so he refuses to join, and ends up leaving Poland, winds up in America, and of course is now flying for the Americans. From what I've seen in the back cover here, each one concentrating on a different friend is eventually gonna get them back together. It was an interesting story. The art is kind of stiff at moments, but when they're showing all the dog fights, it was pretty cool. Maybe I'll get more Beartooth. Then I have Trent, the Kid. This is the second album in the series. If you can even see the two there. The first album of Trent was pretty enjoyable. This album centers around this kid who is basically an outlaw, and he likes to recite a lot of poetry, and Trent is sent out to get him. Sadly, the kid reaches a tragic end. But here are the poems that the character quotes. I'm not sure if they're significant to Canada, if they're Canadian. Trent being set in Canada, of course, he's a Mountie. Is that how you say it? A Mountie? I'm a big fan of the art, especially the backgrounds. They reminded me a lot of something Jiro Taniguchi would do. I've enjoyed Trent a lot. There's about eight albums out, so if you enjoy a nice simple western, it feels very wholesome, I think. And if you don't know, Cinebooks is actually the company translating Valerium. I think they're like up to 20 something volumes by now. I don't know. Moving on to Image, the deluxe edition of Cowboy Ninja Viking. It is by AJ Liberman with illustrations by Riley Rosmos. I have to say, I was quite disappointed with Cowboy Ninja Viking. The art by Rosmos is not what I expected. Of course, this is early stuff, so yeah, it was kind of a dull at times. Well, every time there was an action scene, he'd cut from one page where they would start a fight. By the next panel, they were already somewhere else, you know. So I don't know. And the writing was not very good, I have to say. I don't know what else Lieberman has written, but I just couldn't get into it. By the 6th issue in the book, I really didn't care what happened to the characters. So I guess a spoiler, it's about a multiple personalities disorder. I don't know if that would be the spoiler, but basically everyone in the book has some kind of personality disorder, so that's where the Cowboy Ninja Viking comes in. And there's so many characters talking at the same time, and you're trying to figure out what's going on, that it just doesn't work out. I don't know what he was thinking when he was writing. Moving on to something that I really did enjoy. That was The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest. This is by Titan Comics. They're a hard case crime imprint. And it is written by, or it's adapted by Runberg. And it has art by Holmes and Carrot. Manolo Carrot, Jose Holmes. Translated by Rachel Zerner. I have to say the translation was pretty good. If you've not heard of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo series, it is based on the novels by Stieg Larsson. And I have to say the adaptations to the European albums is pretty good. I really did enjoy it a lot. I enjoyed the first album in this trade a lot more because of Holmes's art. But nonetheless, I mean, the story is pretty cool. I would say if you pick up The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, you could probably read it on its own. But for the Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest, I think you need to pick up The Girl Who Played with Fire first, because this third volume basically picks up where that one ended. So you're dealing with a lot of characters from The Girl Who Played with Fire in this one. I bookmarked a couple pages here because this publication, or this printing, doubles the pages up. They inserted a couple of pages doubled up here. Thankfully, the story wasn't cut off. It just has extra pages in there. I don't know what happened. Oh, and another thing, if you notice the big borders on the top and the bottom, that's the reason this should have been printed as a European album, because it would have that extra space. You know, their European albums are squarer, not comic book format, which, you know, it really does hinder the art, but I don't mind it. The dialogue bubbles get a bit smaller, but what can you do? Speaking of different stuff, here is Silver by Stephen Frank. This is volume 3 by Dark Planet. This is a great vampire story set basically, I don't know, 50s or 60s. feels very Bram Stoker's. It actually deals with the daughter of what is it, Van Helsing or something, or a granddaughter? I can't remember. And of course, there's this thief, and they're planning a big heist. And of course, in this third volume, their big heist to steal silver from these crazy, weird vampires goes completely crazy. Volume 3 was supposed to end the series, but apparently Frank has decided to extend it to a fourth volume, which is part of his Kickstarter. If you do the Kickstarter thing, I would highly recommend you backing Steph and Frank on that one. I don't do Kickstarter, but I guess I probably should, because otherwise apparently he's not gonna finish the series if he doesn't get the full backing for it. I don't know how it works. They somehow end up in previews anyway, so more Image. Extremity. This is volume 2, Warrior. Can you see that awkward bend? This thing was like a month late to my shop, and then it still arrives damaged with some tears. Nonetheless, Daniel Warren Johnson, I'm a big fan of his work, and when he puts a pen to paper, you know he's gonna make a very tragic story. And that was the case with Extremity. A lot of sad stuff happens. You're in this futuristic apocalyptic world, and everything just goes bad for our characters. I was a big fan of the ending, but after rereading Space Mullet, I think Space Mullet is a much superior work than Extremity. Even though Johnson's art is kind of cringeworthy in the beginning of the series for Space Mullet, but I highly recommend both Extremity and Space Mullet. Go check them out. And here we have Rumble Volume 4 by John Arcudi, and with the new artist David Rubin. Of course, some great colors by Dave Stewart. If you want someone coloring your work, you gotta get Dave Stewart. I think Extremity would have been better with Dave Stewart coloring it. But this I have not read yet. It's on my TBR, I guess. Is that what you call it? To be read list. So that one just came in. I think was that new? Or is it a month late as well? There's something going on with my comic book shop that they're not working their previews out properly. Speaking of the same TBR pile, Atomic Robo, The Spectre of Tomorrow. I think this is like volume 10. I'm not sure how long they've been doing this series, but it was first being published by Red 5, or was it Red? Yeah, I think Red 5 Comics. Brian Clevenger, Scott Wagner. It's a very fun story about a robot and his weird adventures. It's kind of historical at times. Well, it is kind of historical fiction. If you have not read Atomic Robot before, I would recommend you checking out some of the earlier trades. I think IDW collected the trades into big omnibuses. I'm not sure, but I think so. And more to the TBR pile. Here's Copra Round 1 by Michael Fife. This is published by Bargain Street Press. I have not read anything from them, and of course I have not read Copra, but I heard good things from Mr. Sleepy Reader 666. He's a big fan of Dave, and I have to say it's pretty good. Publication here. You got your, what do you call these flaps? Can't remember. A nice cardboard cover finish. Pages inside, very cardboardy. And from what I've heard, Copra is basically a indie take on Suicide Squad. something like that. I don't know. But yeah. And moving on to the only volume I've got from the big two, and that is from Marvel. That is Captain America, Home of the Brave. Does it have a volume? No, it doesn't have a volume number. This, of course, is Mark Waid and Chris Samney's run on the New Cap storyline. Is it the New Cap storyline? Issues 695 to 700. Big fan of Waid and Samney's Black Widow, so I figured I'd check this out. And I have to say, this was a much more enjoyable title than that. I don't know. You got Cap running around small towns, helping people, you know, helping regular people. Then, of course, you have Kraven thrown into the mix. I enjoyed how they used Kraven. There's a big twist at the end. Something happens. Cap always gets his business done. I have some Oni Press titles. I have The Damned, Volume 2, Ill Gotten, Colin Bunn, Horror Writer. Is it horror or more of supernatural? I don't know. I think it's more supernatural. First volume was very interesting. You got all these demon mobsters in New York during Prohibition times. And we have our main character, who I can't remember his name. And volume 2 basically deals with him getting back together with a friend. And of course, his friend wants to do the unthinkable and cheat a bunch of demons out of their contracts. And of course, you don't want to do that. So there are some story tie-ins to the beginning of our main character and his past and stuff like that. Well, these I've already read on, so that's not the TBR pile. There we go. And Oni Press, this is Deadweight, Murder at Camp Bloom. And it is by a bunch of new writers and artists, or just one artist, a couple of writers, Terry Blass and Molly Muldoon. And you can tell they're new at writing. So I wanted to check out a nice, interesting mystery, and it was okay, I have to say. I did enjoy the characters. Of course, they're all these big kids trying to lose weight, and then something terrible happens, and they have to band together, even though they hate the place, and try to solve a mystery. So I guess if you want to have a look, you know, check it out. Go to your local library, maybe they'll have it. One I would highly suggest that you pick up would be Gorillas. This is volume 3 and 4 by Bram Rebel. I have to say, this was a very cool series. Highly enjoyed it. You basically have your science gone wrong experiment. Volume 3 gives us a lot of backstory on our gorillas, and volume 4 gives us the crazy climax to end all climaxes. And I have to say, it's probably going into the favorite stack of my favorite books, if that makes sense. But great stuff. If you're not opposed to watching animals killing other animals and human beings, it really gives us the answer to the question, who's more beast, man or beast? What? I don't know. I suggest you at least go to your local library and check out Gorillas. And finally, we have Animus. This is by First Second Books, and it is a story by Trent Robo. I think that's how you say his name. Antoine Robo. Writer-illustrator Antoine Robo has a long-held passion for all forms of comics, graphic novels, manga, and bande dessinée. Fostered by his childhood living in Paris, France, Tokyo, Japan, Antoine worked for clients such as Der Spiegel, Macmillan, and the New York Times. Yeah, and it was very interesting. It's very reminiscent of if you've read Katsuhiro Otomo's Domu. I guess this one's more supernatural because it's about a playground and weird stuff is happening in this playground. Children are disappearing somehow. Something is happening. I have two main kids and they're out to solve the mystery of this kid and the playground and all the stuff that happens there. I really did enjoy the art. Very, very nice. I really enjoy how he draws the characters. And yeah, this was a lot of fun. Very nice little mystery. It is kind of sad at the end, but I highly suggest you check out Animus. And there you have it. That was the graphic novels I picked up for the month of May and June. 3 that I have to read, which I'll probably do right after this, or maybe in a day, I don't know. If you stuck around, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video, I guess.